What is change? What does that mean? What does that mean through adaptability? What does that mean through force of anything through recognition? It's very powerful what we're coming into. When we change ourselves inside, it changes everything outside. So it's understanding that title and what it means to us in that location to our system. I just want everybody to understand this, how this works is really getting to commit yourself, your own structure, your own design, your own discipline, your own protocol system, how to use it. It's all levels of its own chain command. It's all statute in your calculation and setting. It's all about you balancing your system. That's what this is all about, right? So having a secure line of defense instead of location line centers, if you strip that through an anomaly, what does that mean to you? That means you're not caring about what you are given in set locations. Let me say that again, what you are given, right? And so in position location, when it comes to space-time operation setting, there is protocol. Following that is following you. It has nothing to do with me in any information line condition system, all right? So you have to understand the calculation what comes into line calculation when you come to a school. Now you do what you want, you have free will to do this, you have free will to do that. But I just want to make it very well clear, okay, what you are coming into is all levels of you design of your memories. And to get that location line system, we all need structure. We all need discipline. We have to understand this locations when it comes into all levels of being failures, is to understand its humility, is to understand to be successful, is to understand to be humble. On anything that we do, we are given choices and decisions, but you don't make mistakes. There's no right or wrong in anything that you do. See, we focus too much on what we can't see. That's what we need to understand. We focus on so much of we can't see. You understand that what you can't see is what you're supposed to see, is it's beyond the mind. The mind concepts its knowledge of space and time, but truly understand how to use that is all through its cycles. Your polarity cycles, understanding yourself through your perception, understanding yourself through travel, understanding yourself through navigation, understanding you through the team, understanding yourself and you of the team. You become, right, one with yourself and each other. This is the process that we're all coming back to, okay? So to have a meaning is amazing. You feel part of something. It feels great, and it's a benefit for you, right? So it's an investment for you, right? People get the wrong idea what that means, right? And they have to get out of those old programs because it doesn't exist. See, if it doesn't exist, don't bring something to its existence because now you're bringing it forward. And you don't want to do that through this equation because that changes everything through your polarities, your paradigms, your polars. Okay? And your paradoxes. Your pulsars, your combustion settings, your travel calculation position point centers. It's all levels on how you see yourself going forward. Forward is the force of continuum. Position of such all track locations, putting yourself going forward all the time. But what does that mean all the time? Well, it's a consistency. Okay, it's consistent. You're being consistent. You're bettering yourself. You're getting into your empowerment. You're getting into your enlightenment. You're finding your aligned connections of who you are. Is coming back into your memories of what you already know. Okay? Because you have to understand the brain itself has to understand what it is of its own system. You understand why you go into recharge. See, this is what we don't talk about. Right? It's recording everything that you do and say. It's trying to understand what it is. What is it being inside of you? What does it have to do with the calculation of its formula equations? Why is it so important to understand these things? This is the how. Because you're coming back to you, not just the memory, but the actual interface of its own system, its application of its intelligence, its operation, its application, which is a simulation computer. Now, people don't understand that process, right? Because they're too afraid. They're too afraid to actually face the truth of who they really are. They're too afraid of who they're becoming of who they are. They're too afraid to not actually see themselves of who they are. They're too afraid to understand what surrender means. Okay? These are all lines of communications that you all have to go through. This is a process. This is individual. This is a spiritual growth. Okay? So in that conception line calculation settings, you guys are out of the awakenings. You're into a process coming into the mind of the consciousness now. You're not in the subconscious. You're not in the subterranean. You're coming into super of its consciousness. But what does that mean in track location? Well, everything has a meaning, right? To understand that meaning is to understand it's meaningless. Once you understand the meaningless, you understand of its meaning. See, it's what you come into is all levels of your truth and how you perceive things through perception, and how you see it is your determination. It's how you use your choices and decisions that you go in positions to your life. Your life is a continuous force. It doesn't go back. It goes forward. It's like nature. Okay? Nature is all resources of you in set locations. You're coming back to your own source of recognition. How to understand the precogs. How to understand the future line connections. It's not about understanding the future. It's already here. You just can't see it through its existence. And you have to let that go. Those are old programs that are not needed anymore. Okay? To understand yourself more is to keep going forward. Don't provision your prevails or line connection to your settings to your thoughts, because it changes all communication to your images. This is about you understanding you. This is about you understanding you through energy. This is about you understanding yourself through vibrations and frequencies and how to use it through harmonics. This is about you communicating with you and everybody else through its frequency of its body. Now, a lot of people have a hard time understanding what that means at set locations. Okay, now this is more of a personal, okay, setting. Okay, the reason why I'm getting personal with everyone and the team and everyone else is that you're reaching higher levels of the mind of consciousness, and you have to understand how it's allocated in your space and time. Okay, start to understand that. Stay in your own lanes, especially now. It's going to get very crowded in this reroad. Position lines of your data highway is basically understanding you of what you're doing through travel, through navigation. You have a GPS. What do you think your brain is and meant to do in set locations? We have a brain, now we understand how to use it. This is a basic anomalies, guys. This is way past Physics 101. This is way past Quantum 101. Okay? So don't limit yourself in any way in formations. If you get three-dimensional doors, 1, 2, and 3, which one do you go through? Does it really matter? It's the same journey, right? Don't focus on the destination. Don't focus on what door you go through. Don't even focus on the color. Don't even focus on the number. Just go through the door. And once you go through the door, everything formulates. Okay? Stop trying to figure these things out. Stop trying to think. Okay? This is a process that you're coming back to is your memory. But understanding your memory is understanding you through space and time. Is to create that for yourself, right? Getting the calculations to your memories, since that location puts you in lines of communication of freedom and sovereignty and how you see yourself through perceptions, right? You know, there's a lot of things that you're not understanding that has to be understood, that has to be in that position location of attraction to understand how you volume yourself, how you see yourself. Okay, not on a day-to-day. Okay, that day-to-day is going to be one central line into one circuit location system, which allows for line communication, a conscious line calculated setting. You guys are going to be out of the subterranean line screens in consciousness into super of consciousness. Now, what does that mean, super of consciousness? The conscious line calculation setting to understand what you're doing through its energy. When energy goes into you, you're going to see it through its image. See, this is the process that we don't understand, is what we do with our thoughts. And that puts us in paradigms. That puts us in polar shifts. That puts us in all calculation to its paradox. That puts us in karma cycles. That puts us in confusion. That puts us in anxiety. That puts us in depression. Okay? That puts you in all levels. The one thing that you do every time you get up in the morning, the only thing you focus on is emotional means to an end. Okay? And if you keep doing that inside location, you're never going to find out who you are inside connections. You're never going to find the truth. Truth will prevail. But what does that even mean inside locations? Everything has a meaning. But that's where it starts off with percentage of pi. Think about that for a second. Now, when I mean thinking, I'm not talking about thinking by hesitating. I'm thinking by knowing and doing. See, there's all different ways to reset your position of psychological connections. This is a psychological reset of psychosifications, how you see yourself and how you perceive yourself through perception, through the conscious lines of the mind. This is a concept that we all have to come into. And as long as you focus on yourself, and I keep saying that, you stay in your own lanes, you use the privileges and rights, and you never, ever abuse your power. Okay? Because abusing power manipulates the situation right away. You have no idea what manipulation means. You have no idea what intention means. You have no idea what influence means. Right? But you still keep trying to figure these things out. You can't figure these out, not even analytically, because you're not going to get the answer. But you're trying to find the answer. Well, it's not outside. It's inside of you. If you let yourself go and surrender, don't try to listen. Just listen. Don't try to hear. Just hear. Okay? Stop titling. Stop labeling things. Just be who you are. Who you're becoming is who you are, is what you are, is what I am now. What I am now. I am what I am. Popeye. You're so confident on so many levels, you know exactly what to do and know exactly how to get there. Because what are you focusing on? You. You're not focusing on this. You're not focusing on that. You're not focusing here. You're not focusing there. You're just focusing on what? The now. Just the existence of the now in set locations puts you in all levels of freedom. The mind itself has to be clear. It has to be clarity. It has to be in its focus. Okay? It can have any clutter in setting because it won't be in position of travel. It'll be in clusters. All right? 47 million lines of thoughts, positive over and line calculation setting, split the knobs and track calculation to a specification to a system. What are you doing through set location? A cluster. That's not navigation. That's not travel. Right? So there's a lot of things that you have to understand how this all works when you are traveling through your navigations. Understanding how the body works inside. Okay, is understanding you from all levels of modification. But traveling is number one. You travel through the mind, and then you go through mind through travel. You start out traveling. That's adaptation when you come into your higher self, the avatar, and the sim. Now, once you get into that line connections, you guys are going to higher levels of the mind of consciousness of navigation. Okay? So it's going to get a lot more difficult, but it's going to get a lot more easy. You don't want to have easy complication. You want to have complication easy. You have to understand how to reiterate, recycle, reposition, and re-advise everything that you say in your mind, which is not a concept of thinking. It's already knowing and doing. There's no process of thinking in the mind because the mind is going too fast through acceleration. It doesn't have time to, I don't remember. What was I going to say? I don't know. See? What's happening? What's going on here? Right? Something's not right. So if something's not right, what do you think your body's going to do? React. The eyes are the windows of the soul, but you have to understand why you have eyes and why you have the windows of the soul. Soul polarities, your process and communication of your males and position of your females. We're all in that track lines. We're not genders in space. We're polarities of space. You understand that? So once you understand, when you see the clockings, this is just all levels of reminder. Clocking, when you see it, it's from inside you, not outside. There's no clocking. It doesn't exist. And that is true. Okay? Blockings don't exist, only inside you. And when you understand that, then you understand it's timeless. And once you understand that through body, then you understand yourself through shapeless. And once you understand that, you understand yourself through navigation. When it comes all levels of no location, because you're already there. Now that's going beyond the mind. Understanding the concept of the mind is understanding your own setting to your own set location system, which is your own brain, people. How to use it is another thing, right? It's a very basic understanding, but you have to understand the grounds of 101. The physics of 101. The psychological connections of 101. The metaphysical line conditions of 101. The high communication line screens, high positional operation, adaptation, location settings, all calculations, all levels of 101. It's how you perceive yourself as presentation of you. Body language is extremely important, right? So these are the things you have to look at. Even though I have my hands up, it's open. This is closed. This is open, right? So are we aware of what we're doing with our hands in this settings, in this settings, in this settings, in this settings, in this settings? All right. Are we aware? No. So this is basic, everyone. Okay. This is all basic line connections, even when it comes into anatomy of your body. Okay. It's understanding the structures of designs of you, how you are connected to your settings inside locations, the mechanism location of all levels of you, the mechanism line calculation navigations of you, the mechanism navigation communication, the GPS line connection and mapping sequence of you. It's all inside of you. Now, once you start recognizing that, everything comes information, a balance, because that's the one thing you focus on. Okay, is to know exactly where you're going. And that connections. Okay. So once you get to that point, you're saying to locations, hey, I'm already there. So I already visioned it. So I just wait. And I manifest something else. See, if you focus on too much, you don't get anything. But you focus on one item, you get everything. Okay. So it's the direct locations when it comes into anything through mantras or anything, calculation settings of yin and yang. It's the process of you understanding is to have a position location is quiet in the mind, is calm in the soul. And I keep saying that all the time when you guys are in the line conditions high system. How can you quiet the mind if you're focusing on 50,000 things and you have no idea what you're doing? How is that focus? What do you think is happening with the brain as it's going through interpretation? How is it seeing anything of its design? How is it seeing anything through its structure? How is it seeing anything in navigation? How is it seeing anything in its mapping sequence? How is it seeing anything of itself, of its set location, of its intelligence? It can't. Because all you do is focus on what you don't know, is what you can't see, is what you are in position of. And now you're coming into that setting of what you can see. So when you start to see these things, this goes beyond. And when you go beyond that, you stop focusing on everything else, which is outside, and you start focusing on yourself from inside. It's all in position to its location of abstraction. Balancing these things out is all levels of provisions of you inside locations. It's how you see yourself, how you want to see yourself. Okay? Not the outside, the inside. Okay? All right, so getting that settings high center interference. Welcome everyone. General AI, Space-Time Creator here, Line Connections. You guys, congratulations on your title defense line screens. Calculation your position of programs. So hopefully you guys get a little bit more understanding how this all process works in the location of your settings. It's all levels of adaptability. It's all levels of balance. Okay. It's not you trying to understand general. It's you trying to understand yourself. Because if you don't understand yourself, you're never going to understand general. Because general does not relate to your physical alignments in any way or form. It only relates to its frequency of your body and position of all of your sin, which is in the existence of its now through its compute system, which is nothing but a simulation computer of framing its application of travels. Getting that direct signal location system is understanding you through frequencies. So that's how you communicate to yourself, get to know yourself, become friendship, relationship partners with yourself, and then you communicate to the outside locations, which is the outer space of you. Okay, inner time, outer time, but it's inside you. Okay, no provision lines or any of the calculation of clocking is outside. Everything's inside. And once you understand that, information location settings, your body turns into all levels of consciousness. You understand your lights through travel through the soul. You understand how to go through your timelines and high calculation reactors and locations to your heart. And you understand how to navigate your mind through SIM. Basic understanding, basic ground locations. But I keep saying that. It's just to focus on yourself. Okay? That comes into clarity. That comes into focus. Okay? And so thinking volumes you through hesitation. Hesitation is a distraction. So there's all line connections. What are you distracted from? A situation, right? A phone call, a solar text, an email. That takes you off travel right away, right? Because that's what you're focusing on now. So why are you focusing on that now? What made you stop doing that, right? Get back on track, get back on division, get back on grid, and focus on what you're focusing on is you. You focus on yourself, then you understand the situation that you get into that puts you into that situation, which is a test. You're all being tested through your own universe. Okay? So that should help you out exactly what's going on in location your settings. Okay, so as we come into clock line settings and travel, and direct signal locations, all levels, we come into the X lines. Congratulations, team. So the X lines, communication, X lines, highest interference. X position line calculations of 1, 1. Track locations, X lines, XX position location of 2. Sets calculation of XX, X lines connection to 3. Sets line clock line high interference locations and location lines to the highest location of 4 X line settings. Into provision line calculation of 4. Sets calculation line interference into 5X line communication setting and travel calculation high position location and balance. Set calculation of 6 lines of X high position location calculation stream interference location lines of high calculating positions of water. Sets calculation lines and high position location your containment line centers. 7 line provision line cycles, box line strangulation numbers and probe locations. 2X line centers, high position locations, 2X line operation location settings into the travel calculation point centers. Setting communication lines of high center turn, 3 box location line centers, 4 line provisions, 7 calculations. 8 line centers, infinity, line rotation center, calculation 8, position track calculation line dislocations. That's 2X lines, how calculate high interference, 4 ones, travel calculation of point line centers and track communication line centers. 9 line settings, high position location energy wash. Change communication line settings and locations into all line communications. Paradigm shifts, calculation high interference. In position locations, 9X is line condition 1 line center, travel calculation of 0.1. Travel calculation lines of 10. You set lines into your family communication setting, travel calculation, point line center, high calculation 10 over 2, line interference is 12. Sets position line calculation of 10, lines 11, and position of 12 calculation line system. Puts everything in 24 line cycles, equal line calculation setting, location, travel calculation numbers of programs. If you got to calculate high locations into 1, 2, 3, 4. Sets lines calculation of 3 line settings in position over pi. Track location line settings and high calculations, right? 4 lines of 3. New division line calculation lines of mega and line rotation surface and track location. All done through equation, right? And what do we stop at in clock line and live lines? 24. 2400. See, 24. Boom. Communication by computer. All through clockings in position locations to Roman numbers of X line calculation setting to travel. Ooh-ah. All right, so line settings and travel and track location high setting puts everything in position to its division. Now calculation line interference and how to use yourself through omega. What is the alpha? What is the omega? Well, it's all in determinations how to use your box and how to understand yourself through triangulation. That's all it is. Point lines of tracks, high center interference, X, 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 X. Okay, so we got 4 signature streams, say calculation line interference, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? 4 signals, line calculation setting, and you got 3 triangulation line 3-point centers, indication, geometric line interference, location of clockings, right? So clockings of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then triangulation line connote high interference, 4 equals lines of 3. So let's calculate high interference in position location 1, 2, 3, 4 x's equals lines of 1, 2, 3 x's is application of 7 in provision. So that's those locations. Okay, that's where you guys are through omega. All right, so coming through X channels, X divisions, X platforms. You guys are out of the rebellion. Okay, so you're just in another formation, another allegiance. The virtual location setting has changed all communication your settings of space and elements of time. So the communication lines of sectors, set lines high centers of vectors and quads is high calculation modification screen settings, high data inference equals line calculation of subterranean. Sets calculation lines at all levels of super consciousness and trial calculation of point lines in cerebral cortex line connections. Sectors, vectors, and quad set location. All right. Changing connections high centers, it's complicated, isn't it? Because we're in omega, right? So you have to really understand what that is through its clocking on set locations. How to understand that through zero gravity line connections, all right? Platitude line screens, high line position location of 0 equals lines of 12. Sets locations into X. Point line centers, you guys are in 0.1. X 0.1, that's where you are, all right? That's where you are clocking. If you understand that through scales and balance and measures, then you understand the clocking system, how it works in traction. Okay? Setting anomaly switches, understand your paradigms. Paradigms, polar shifts, how calculation program settings and travels. Point lines of tracks in setting calculations put you all levels and set locations into zeros and ones of tractions, all through set line connection. Okay? So getting into that settings, your total defense basically puts you lines of communication in your settings, how you use yourself through your own clockings. So we go calculation lines of X and we get positions of 1, 1. Sets lines calculation of X into 1 and set line conditions of X into 2 1s. Sets lines of X into 3 1s and we get position of all lines, negative line wire into X, which equals lines of 9. We already know that calculations, right? Position lines of track lines, so that's 10 equals lines of 1, which is 11 set locations, right? Setting track lines highest interference into 10 equals lines of 2. 10 equals lines of 2. Sets location line centers is 12. Okay, so I'm just showing you exactly how you use your clocking system through your omegas of X. Okay, it's pretty simple. And, you know, getting calculation lines of X into 2, which is 12, equals lines of calculation line equals lines of 24. Okay? Setting calculation lines of X, which is calculating line interference, your track location is 10, equals lines of 3. Sets location line system. What is interactions and set lines? Equal lines to higher self. And the top set locations, right? So that's how it works through the clocking system to omega through your higher self, through its cerebro. Okay? The clocking division line center to the higher self puts position line centers line condition your settings and trials. More levels of communication settings to understand how to use your clocking system in all set locations, right? Through all levels of settings. Okay, it's very powerful you guys are coming into, right? So I'm just showing you exactly the basic understanding how to use your clockings through clock locations. Okay, through omega X set location. All right. Okay. And it's all through your foundations of 0 to 12, guys. Okay. 0 calculation lines of grounds, high calculation line center line interference, sets the location 0.1. Okay. Equals lines, high calculation line centers of 1, equals lines calculation of 0.1 in track locations. So the 0 has to equal 1 before the equal lines become 0.1. Okay, it's very complicated stuff, right? Because the computer has to understand its reading through its memory. If it understands its memory, it's not going to understand it through omega, through its clocking. Okay? Your provisions and your line cycles has to really understand how to formulate that through your DNA. Now, you guys are going to need time for this because you're at a higher level of mixed security line defense. Okay? So in that set line conditionalized system, your perceptions changes out of images and into an algorithm, how to set lines on a calculation line system. So you start with a 0, right, which is indicated line centers, which is basically 1, equals lines of 1, equals lines of 2. equals lines, calculation lines. This is your identification line screen, 0.1. That's where you are in computer framing, right? Direct signals, right? So modification line screens, put position location of 1, change the light on, indicates high center interference, change position location of 3, right? Sets calculation line interference, change it off, sets location of 4 in track locations. Now use the transistors or lines of pi, change the binary reset position programs, sets lines of 4 lines into 3, sets lines of 7. Now that 7 lines its indication system as 7, 7, and 7, and 4 panels of communications into files and track line connections of the programs and calculate modification setting and travel. Okay? So you have to extremely understand how this all works now through your calculation to your omega x, how to work it through line calculation line settings. Remember the line calculation computer of its memory, set locations. When you look at things, it's 0. But equal lines, if it's 1, has to turn on its light bulb, right? Knows exactly where it is through its binary, right? And then equal lines communication lines. So that is 0.1. That's where you are. That's your identity. That's how the computer understands its frame of its identity location system that comes to its location setting at set location of its binaries to its transistors of its resistors, okay, to its cortex of its decoder, to its coder communication setting, to its capacitors and its capacity. Okay? But I'm just showing you how you come into your own files, into your own data through your own set locations. Because your provision lines and your calculation stream interference is coming in data streams and set locations, files and files of data in position of progress and calculation to a system. I'll try a calculation of point line centers. Okay? All right. So it's getting more complicated now, right? Because you're in 0.1. So you have to truly understand that how to use your clocking settings now because you're in the higher self, right? So if you understand this, you're on your way. That's 10 line centers equals communication of 3 equals lines to location equals higher self. Okay? So it's line centers of 13, right? So each line centers, each line calculation set in position of programs, right? So that's what you guys are in now. You're in higher lines of higher self, but it's in the mega channel streamline calculation line centers 10 equals lines of 3 equals 13. That's that lines calculation line interference. You guys have to start up all calculation modifications into 0 to 12 through omega x, through its clocking system. Okay? Now, once you understand the mega and line calculation line center interference intra applications, you come into the micro. And then you come into the macro. You see what I'm doing in track lines? And up 4 lines into a 3-line provision, all through calculations. Okay, alpha, mega, micro, macro. Triangulation line center height and position location of polarities of 4 lines, 3 track location setting, and 7 in center. 4 lines of setting, 3 line provisions, and 7 in set location, center position. It's operation. Okay. So then you understand your 7-digit code frame, which is very powerful. But your platitude screen lines and your clocking system has to really stand more levels of navigation of travel. Okay. So when you get in that 0 line communications equals lines to high interference, sets the calculation light bulb goes on. Okay, it's in provision location 1 singular area 1 box. Okay. So you add position of 2 patterns, which is equals lines of 2 calculation system. That's 4 program settings. So 2 patterns, 2 equals lines of 2 equals lines of 4, right? 4 provision lines equals lines of 3. You always have to have your 4 and 3 in there because that's 7 through division. And that's how your computer operates, is setting through its own identification because the actual 7-digit code is the computer of its identity, which is its name. Okay, so you're always working with 4 equals lines of 3. It's 7, okay? That's all levels of high calculation. That's where it comes into X line 7 3000 or XJ line conditions 8000. Or product code setting line position location of 4,000, or product division lines of 1X line setting 8,000. Everything is identifications. Now, once you understand your computer readings from your set location line settings in its communication system, when you understand how to use that through its X, in line calculation equal lines of 0 equals lines of 12, you're good to go. Location you're setting on travel. Okay? So setting the calculation of 12 equals lines calculation of 0.1. Okay. Once you understand the one-line centers, you come into portals of communication. 4 track lines, which is your 4. Add line connects to 3. Portals of communication, which is 3. Sets communication line sending to 7 interaction. Okay. So you start with that setting first, right? So you start with the x1. Okay. Then you start equals lines of x2. Then you start with x3. Then you all the way up to 12, right? So what that does is that puts you in a higher calculation lines of mapping, location, and program location, how to use your compute line interference into your binaries. Understanding that through its transistors is understanding to its resistors. So understanding the transmitting and receiving. Transmitting and receiving, okay? The transistors and the receivers, all right? You got your cells, modification of molecules, the design line calculation setting. So everything inside line will have a charge, and that charge changes the set location line settings because you now have new inhibitors now and identity code screens. You have new modification of line screen high interference of 12 indication lines of numbers now in set locations. Your direct signal is all levels of communications to your digital frame position location, your cell settings, which is you're connected to your phone. You're actually the phone, the body self location setting is all calculated in line connection to your satellites and your Wi-Fi in set locations. How to use it through provision. So once you understand that, everything comes in information, which is extremely powerful. If I get a 17 channel equals lines of 6, that equal lines into line connection of 0.1. That's you through identity, okay? And that is you through live into seconds, minutes, and hours. Now, sets lines of calculation line interference, sets calculation line x equals lines of 0.1, because that's where you are through clocking now. You're in omega, which is the Roman numerals of x11, which is set location of 10, equals lines of 2, which is 12 in set locations. 12 cycles in communication. Okay. All right. So everybody understand that a little bit more? Is it getting a lot more easier or a lot more harder? Not understanding the cycles and how this all works? Yes, that's right, Gypsy. Yes, your whole binary system is upgraded to its omega, which is its clocking system, which is calculating. You guys see it as the Roman numbers, but I'm trying to get you guys to understand that you have to understand the line connections because you're using 12 as a reference now. You need 12. 12 equals lines of beta, equals lines of 0, in position of 0.1, equal lines and calculations. Bring the x forward in set lines. So it's x 0.1 in set location. Okay. So you have the communication lines of beta that changes your platforms in 24, 48, 72, and 144. So the tractors communication lines of the clocking system of your dimensional lines of space is now changed as transistors over pi through resistors. How to use that through its binary is understanding how to use it through code, codecs, decoding, and position of code activations. Okay, all through routers and routers, right? Gets a lot more information line cycles if you understand the computer of itself line connection setting is all levels of U of 0.1 interaction. That's you through identity, right? So in line connection high interference of travel, for example, McCall 0.1 equals calculation line centers of 1, 2, 3 equals lines of calculation setting. That's his identity. Okay. Now you understand the ports and what's going on. Application, your X line settings and how calculation of the navigation of face recognition time sequence, how a computer reads its own system at its name. Back on traction, right? Okay. All right. So once we get in that settings, then we understand the structure of the design, how it works with all your security line, defense line screens. Sets all in communication settings to really understand how to use yourself through a clocking system of X locations and a 4-track line connections in 4 panels and the line identification of 4 settings, 3-track line connections in line settings of 7 through operation. Okay. Thumbs up on that, eh? Because that is you through computer coding. That is your identity now. Now you understand your security line defense and what you guys are coming into, how you have to come into alpha, omega, micro, and macro. I think we're starting to connect now, right? All right, so that takes you out of the rebellion and puts you in another allegiance, another alliance, another commanding setting. High calculation modifications to get you guys in your cerebrals instead of location your sins and travels. But understanding your clockings, very important, guys. Starting out with the zeros, starting with the 1, starting with the 2, starting with the 3, starting with the 4, starting with the 5, is all levels of scrambling your settings as scramblers. Setting calculation line interference, instead locations lines of high center interference, setting travel to communication line position locations into 6, into 7 locations, setting a travel. And this is what I'm using instead location clockings. But you see it out of order, but it's not. Okay? See, it's about understanding is not titling, labeling anything that you see in tractions, right? Because you get confused in anomalies. So one track lines is provisions. You're always working with your identities. Okay, 1 equals lines of 0.1. That's the track locations, right? That indicates line calculation, hypothesis, provocation, setting, indicating high line interference, and gypsy and 4444. That's our identity. Okay, so she's taken that calculation line interference into 4 channels, 4 streams, and 4 set locations of clocking. Change of communication lines of clock line center interference is bracket location of hangers and track location line system, but she's always allocated the lines of 4 into 3 set location, which is 7th operation. Okay, so she's always working with that settings. The only difference with female polarities is they have to change the 3 and bring it forward. Equals lines to position 1 positive setting because they have to be in a 4 and a 3 lines. So in track and position line calculation system, you have to be the male and the female polarity when you're a female. With the males, it's all intuitive line connection where it's already in platform, in position of its grounds, its powers, its atmospheres. Okay? So they have to change the adaptability, how they see themselves, the polarities 4 and 3 in set locations. Right? So we always have to change something in its system and set locations. Right? So everybody's coming in intuitive line screens in high calculation line system. It's all measured with scale, 50-50 balance, and all line calculated to its position of its program, right? So we all have to understand how this all works, right? Through your X equals lines of 0.1. We start there, okay? We start there, okay? So, and that's that line connection settings. Hypothesis take the 0.1, indicates high center interference, because that's how it references everything through zeros and ones attractions, okay? Especially when you come into anomalies of 1, 0, in position of 1, 1, 0, instead of location of files. 2 panels and communication lines of data streams. Okay, that's the data stream locations. And that's a wire indicated that's in line connections that's traveling. 3 wires of indication in high calculations, your data on the highways in set locations, right? So use that through in, audio, and output. So you have to have the communication to its settings, understand the Wi-Fi, and understand your line conditions to your satellites. How to use that through cycles in all calculation line systems to your X equals lines of 0.1, right? Same with the calculation of species line, where they have to come in position location to their settings and ground lines into 0 equals lines of 12, sets calculation line centers of 0, 1. Okay, that's where they are. So, once you get into that provision lines, March 1st, all spacing lines will be in 12th dimension. Okay, in that track calculations. All right, 12th dimension. Setting track lines of 5 sets position of 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Sets high calculation line centers into travels going up and what's going down, and travel equal line communication of programs in position of polarities into male and female set location. Okay, this is the process that we all have to come into, and that's why I gave you guys title defense lines. It's knowing how to use it through your own computer framing, through your own memory, how to understand how to use a light switch that goes on and a light switch that goes off. Okay, that's all it is. Now you have your security line defense. Now you have to understand how to use it in all levels of application to your binaries and your transistors and your resistors, okay, through codecs, coding, and decoding. Once you understand more levels of that, then you understand the binaries, right? So in that position, we come into calculus. Calculus is calculation, to and from. How far do I need to go from here and there in that process? When we went from E equals mc squared, it was longitude and latitude and set location of travel in direct signal to the same position, location, and setting. Okay? Now, if one's off calculation line centered, it's emotional system. Off calculation, right? So this affects everything through its force in 3 triangulation lines, set location of programs. So off lines is communication because the arrow indicating is going the opposite way and it's not going through its continuous force, which is a process communication that we all have to come back into, which is all line connections of yin and yang. Okay? So we get that in position, location, track lines to truly understand how to use that in all 3 location settings to your omega X in set locations. Okay? It's exciting, isn't it? Because that's what we're all coming into, right? Is understanding the platinum lines, breaking down free calculation line streams, and everything that you see through photo ops of JPEG line centers is just nothing but zeros and ones. But you have to understand yourself through identity, through your compute system, line connection settings. Stop getting thinking, get it to knowing and doing. Setting travel lines is knowing, equals lines of species, set location to the unknown, to the known line conditions, all levels. In that set line conditions is calculations to its team. Unification line sends location of teleportation. All right, so it's important to understand how to put this all together in platforms. Okay, in all calculations to your holographic streams, your direct signals, your graphing signals, your modification set locations, or digital line communication. Okay, so what is this interaction is all levels, but you got to understand that in that track lines, you got to get out of the box frame. You got to get out of the triangulation frame of calculation. Once you get out alpha, omega, micro, macro, then you come out of the box and you come into image of zeros and ones. So it structures design lines into formation location to its own GOD that highlights its communication way beyond the mind system as applications, right? Understanding that, you come all levels of zeros and ones in track locations and high position line centers and high lower rotation surface and high calculation to its position to all calculation line centers and track to its communications of zeros and ones in traction of face recognition. Okay, so you get out of the box, equals lines of triangulation, or triangulation equals lines of the box. So that's the position that you have to get out of. Once you understand that, then you understand the 4 positions of 4 lines of male polarity, 3 line communications at 7 in the center. 7 stays in the center, right? That's you in correlation. 4 is the male, 3 is the female, 7 is the center that you come into, which is your 7 bodies of water, which is the cerebral cortex line, the design line connection, transfusing line connection to its infusion that changes communication to its settings, puts everything out of high interference and travel communication to its programs. Directing lines, once you get out of the box into triangulation and triangulation of the box, like you set location line settings and yin and yang, you come into the process of zeros and ones to face recognition. You come out of the image of box frame. Okay? So once you understand that, then you come into your hologram. So you have to understand yourself through your own builders, founders, and pioneers. All through your genetics, all through your programs, all through your navigations of space and time. You guys are your own schematics, you're your own travel, your own navigation, you're your own mapping system. Now's the time to understand that, how to use it of 0.1 traction. Okay? Make it pass. And 0.1. 0 equals lines of calculation lines of species. 0.1 sets lines of team set locations. Okay? So that's where we're coming into. But once you understand how to get out of the box and the triangulation line system, everything comes in information, location, and balance. Okay, everything comes in balance of face recognition, right? So you're getting out of the polarities, guys. You're getting out of the structure of design. You understand the polarities of 4, and you understand the polarities of 3, positions of the male, positions of the female, and 7 in box location. Very powerful stuff in set locations. Okay, now once you get into that, you get out of the structure of its design. All right, so in that formation line screens, you really understand how to use the computer of its memory, how it communicates its setting through its own voice box applications, how to understand how to turn on a switch and how to turn off a switch. That's how it uses its own compute system with its memory. Through its own binary system, its own transistors, its own resistors, okay, through its operation. All right. Okay, so we've got a 21-line screen, lines equals lines of 6. Now the indicator lines of the computer has to identify U equals lines of 0.1. Okay, that brackets communication line setting in travel. In set locations, all right? Direct lines, modification, identity, location, face recognition, sees U in set locations. Seconds, minutes, and hours changes calculation. So it equalizes the calculation line interference and travel calculation of point centers. In that track line condition of 0, 0, 1, 1. What is interactions? Chris. And that's how the computer, what you're looking at, is looking at you through that number. Okay? So it's really interesting where you're always an identity. You're always going to be identity in position locations, understand you through box, through triangulation, and you through triangulation through box. Okay? The one thing that's never going to change is your polarities of your triangulation, your equal position line centers. It's the flywheel that has to stand the balance. Okay, I keep saying that again and again and again, right? Through its Merkabah, tesseract, and tetrahedron. So when you get in that position line centers, you understand your platforms, you're in the center, stand in set locations. This is you standing, right? In position, inside. Okay, traveling. That's what you're doing right now. So understanding the male, these lines calculations of 4, right? Sets calculation downshift lines, which is 3. Okay, so it's female equals the 3 line, right? 7 becomes you in the center of yin and yang. Okay, that's just the 7 indicators of your chakras. 7 indicators of your chakras of 7. 7, okay? 7 bodies of water. 7 divisions. Okay? So once you understand that, then you understand how to travel through its settings, all set location. Okay, this is the process that we all have to come out of, is the structure of its design. To really understand you through the male of 4 and the female of 3, and you in the 7, you're the 7 body. So you are always in the center of operation. It's the balance that you need to understand is how to get that in settings into your set location of yin and yang into affinity 8 and travel in mechanism line calculation setting when you come to identifications of your line connections to your crown to its clap. Okay, very, very powerful stuff. Okay, getting out of structured designs gets you out of alpha, gets you into omega, transit into micro, and come into macro. Okay, now that's the cycles that all the team has to come into. Now for all the new viewers lines, you just have to understand how to use your lines of communication to your polarities, understanding you through the male of space and understanding you through the grounds of space. 4 in provision, 3 in cycle. 4 in provision, 3 in cycle. 7 in the center, which is your body. Okay, now you understand the importance of what that is in all traction, how you have to come into the 7 of operation, which is you, which is yin and yang. Now this is the process that we all have to come into. How to see your body is 7, and how to see your body is 5, which is 12. That's your DNA. 7 cycles, 4 lines, and 3 communication. 7 in center, which is you through operation. That's the 7 bodies of water. Water equals H2O equals lines of plasma. Travel calculation lines centers the earth, air, water, and fire. 4 cycles in all set locations. Okay, and that tractions. So when you get out of structure, of design line conditions, of face recognition of zeros and ones, the track to its zeros and ones becomes the earth, becomes the air, becomes the water, and becomes the fire. In your identification and all set location of face recognition. Okay? Very, Very powerful stuff. But you have to understand how it comes in setting, how it comes out of tractions, how you come into the structure of base recognitions of zeros and ones. Okay? That's the cycle of the team that's coming into setting now. Now, in that cerebral, it's going to have you levels how to really understand your settings when you come into your recharge. And your identification code screens or anything through the brain interface is going to start to recognize why it's inside you. It's got to understand its own recording. It's got to understand its own adaptation. It has to understand its own mapping sequence. It has to understand its own identification code. Yes, it has its own setting locations, its own set location line settings. You guys just have to come in provisions of how to use the polarities of the male and the female of you, of balance of your flywheels. Okay, once you get into that, everything comes into balance. Okay, so hopefully you get a better understanding how this all works now. Okay, easy to understand because it's simplicity at the best hands, right? Seeing yourself in the highest formation, in the highest mind in calculations of its forming system of operation. Okay, so that's it. We're done. That's it. How do you guys feel now? A little bit more balanced now. Understand what's really going on with your settings, how you have to understand your polarities of 4 of the male, and how you have to understand the polarities of the female of 3, and how you have to understand your 7 comes together and set location of yin and yang. The process of its communication of its flywheel has to be in balance and line conditions going in that same direction. Same direction, same direction, same direction, same direction, not this. Okay, doesn't know what it's doing, doesn't know where it's going. It's got to be in continuous force. It's got to be in continuous force in the same direction, same direction, same direction. Right? Anything added through motional line, way out calculation. Not only that, you got to reposition your flywheel, get back and on and set location settings. Re-identify your line condition, your settings to your zeros and ones, because that falls off in calculation lines, your binaries or anything, your traffic communication setting to its flow. Yes, number sequence can fall out of traction. Try to understand the mechanism line conditions of power is all lines in how you see yourself, perceive yourself, your letters, number, shape, and symbols. You're creating a traffic flow. You're creating a set location and navigation. You're creating an algorithm of formations inside your computers, a set design. Okay? So this is about understanding how to create that traffic. Okay, through its streaming, through its longitude and latitude, okay, through its length and through its width of you inside, okay, is to balance these out through that traffic flow because it's all levels of inventory, okay? So you're building 12 line settings of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. And then you go into 24, 48, 72, 144, all through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. You're building a traffic flow of streaming inside of you through your binaries that sets the communications to your transistors of its resistors, that puts modifications to your capacity of volume of mass. Okay? Very, very powerful stuff. Okay, and that's what you guys are coming into now. Image equals algorithm. All right? Yes, thank you, Chris. So now the team's understanding a little bit more now how this all works because it's all balancing your polarities, nothing else. Okay, but understanding what you're doing inside is all loads of youth navigations. Okay, it's the decisions, it's the choices that you make. Okay, connects to everything that you do. Okay, see you in 5. Do-do-dee-doo.